Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking one of the most legendary showdowns in human history, the climactic duel between Achilles and Hector. But, we aren't just looking at the basic sword swings and spear throws here. We're really going to peel back the armor to reveal a profound psychological tragedy about the corrupting nature of war. So, let's jump right in.
So what actually happens when an unstoppable whirlwind meets an unmovable bulwark? Well, to really understand the climax of this brutal 10-year conflict, we have to look at the dramatic collision that took place right outside the Scaean Gates of Troy. And what's absolutely crucial to grasp here is that this wasn't sparked by some formal, honorable military challenge. No, it was ignited by a death. Specifically, the death of Achilles' beloved companion, Patroclus, at the hands of Hector. Just look at the sheer contrast in their motivations here. It's wild. The stakes are totally asymmetrical. On one side, we have the Greek whirlwind, Achilles, who is returning to battle driven entirely by grief and just a blinding thirst for vengeance. And on the other side, Hector, the bulwark of Troy. He stands alone, motivated purely by duty and the desperate need to ensure his city's survival. The source actually paints this incredibly powerful picture. It says, "He stood as the shield of his people." Even knowing the prophecy, knowing full well that Achilles is the greater warrior and that his own death might literally spell the end of Troy, Hector bravely refuses to retreat behind the walls with his army. He just stands there, bearing the immense weight of an entire city's survival on his shoulders. Watching this Greek giant approach through the swirling dust. Imagine the terror of that exact moment. Okay, so let's trace this escalating tension. It builds into this frantic chase that completely turns our traditional ideas of heroism upside down. Hector's courage actually falters at first, and he flees. For 3 entire laps around the massive walls of Troy, sprinting in about 60 pounds of heavy bronze armor, by the way, the greatest Trojan hero is running for his life from a relentless Greek demigod. It's an exhausting, terrifying pursuit, and it only ends because of a really cruel divine trick. And here comes what is, frankly, the ultimate dirty trick, Athena's deception. The goddess, who heavily favors the Greeks, actually descends and disguises herself as Hector's beloved brother, Deiphobus. She falsely promises Hector they'll face Achilles together. Emboldened by this phantom support from his brother, Hector finally stops running, steadies his breath, and turns to face his inevitable fate. So, finally facing the whirlwind, Hector makes this desperate plea for just a shred of humanity in all this brutal theater of war. He asks, "Let us swear an oath before the gods. If I should kill you, I will return your body to your people, and I ask the same of you." He's proposing a civilized, dignified pact regarding how they'll treat the loser's remains. But listen to how Achilles responds. It is chilling. He says, "There are no oaths between men and lions, nor between wolves and lambs. You will pay for what you have done." His profound grief has completely, totally incinerated his sense of honor. In his mind, he is the predator, and Hector is nothing but prey. When they actually clash, the mechanics of the fight are completely rigged. It's deeply asymmetrical. Achilles throws his spear first and misses, but Athena secretly hands it right back to him. Hector, totally unaware of this invisible heavenly assistance, strikes Achilles' divine armor with a perfect hit, but it just bounces off harmlessly. And then when Hector turns to ask his brother for a second spear, he grasps empty air. It's right then, in that exact moment, that Hector realizes his brother isn't there. He has been entirely abandoned by the heavens. Have you ever had a moment where you realized you were totally on your own? The text captures his realization with this fatalistic acceptance of his doom. "The gods have summoned me to my death." So in these final moments, Hector just draws his sword, casts aside any thought of mercy, and charges. But doing this exposes him to a counterattack. And here is a masterclass in tragic irony. Achilles waits for a small gap in Hector's defenses and delivers a fatal spear strike right to the throat. And the reason he finds that fatal gap so perfectly is because the Trojan prince is actually wearing Achilles' own old armor. He knew exactly where the weak spot was. As Hector falls, using his dying breath to cling to his dignity, he pleads one last time for his body to be returned to his father, Priam. But Achilles is completely deafened by grief. He responds with this horrific, animalistic declaration. "Beg me not, dog, by knees or parents. I only wish I could carve your flesh and eat it raw." Achilles' humanity is just gone. What happens next is genuinely grim. In the ancient world, denying someone a proper burial meant their soul would wander in agony forever. Achilles doesn't just kill Hector, He desecrates him. He strips the armor, pierces the heels of the fallen prince, lashes him to his chariot, and drags his body through the dirt while Hector's family watches in agonizing silence. Instead of showing the customary respect for a fallen foe, he commits an act of humiliation so extreme it appalls even his own allies. So, when the dust finally settles, we're left looking at two very different outcomes. Tactically, sure, it's a Greek victory. Hector is defeated, but morally, the outcome is devastating. Achilles loses his soul, and the Greeks win a deeply tainted victory. It becomes brilliantly clear that while the physical duel was won, it triggered a catastrophic moral injury that turned a military triumph into a profound spiritual tragedy.
The ultimate fallout from all this extends way beyond just the battlefield. As our source highlights, Troy is left as a body without a head. But the real takeaway for us here is the true cost of absolute vengeance. When we allow ourselves to be consumed by that kind of anger, we become the very darkness we're fighting against. Troy's heart is left silent in the dust, for sure, but the Greeks are forever burdened by their own cruelty.
Which brings us to a final, really lingering question. Did Achilles actually win? Considering he completely lost his humanity outside the Scaean Gates that day, we have to ask ourselves, in the brutal theater of conflict, when the victor gives up their soul for the sake of vengeance, does a victory this dark actually count as winning? Or is it just another devastating loss? Thank you for joining me on this explainer. I hope this sheds some new light on the true cost of this legendary duel.